Corrections lecture itself, it's about something like an hour long or something, and to basically condense all of that, just the very best bits into 10 minutes, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the presentation you put on that sort of thing is good as well. I mean, that's why I really appreciate the videos that you do, because you incorporate not the information itself and different bits of, like, video clips and backing music and this sort of, and I'd say, coming back to your Capitalism Epic Fail video, it's a perfect example of how you've collated all these different things. And in fact, it ends really, really well with the audio of Pastor Ortberg's Back in the Box speech with the Pucifier song, The River, I think it's called. And like whenever my MP3, because I always have my MP3 player on shuffle, whenever it comes up to Capitalism Epic Fail, if I'm in a bit of a rush mood, then I will actually skip forward to the beginning of where Pucifier begins, just after the Gandhi bit, and I actually really like how you've, because especially when you're watching that video, it gives you a sort of empowerment in a sense, because you've come up with that good combination of how edifying the Back in the Box speech is, with how dare I say transcendental the motivation of the song The River is, and combining those both together, plus with the little bits of text you have right at the beginning, I'd say it is very empowering, and that's why I've recommended the Capitalism Epic Fail video to a lot of people.
It seemed like that just fell together so easily and so perfectly. It worked so well. I mean, it wasn't something I really had to search for to find the perfect piece of music. I had just heard that song and I wanted to use it in a video, and I had just heard that clip because Peter had played it on one of the radio shows, and I just, they overlapped them, and oh man, I was surprised by how, powerful the combination of those two was. I ended up uploading just that last bit that you're talking about as a separate video on my channel, and that one's gotten tons of views as well. So, cause it's very powerful, just that song and that speech cut together. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to disservice Peter's remix of that speech, but I actually prefer your mix to it, but it's I'll if you notice with quite a few other different videos that are out there, there's quite a few examples of how a motivational speech, or like any socially conscious speech, can be emphasized and by the augmentation of a piece of music. Like, so for example, and especially if it's put on the end of a video, like there's a video on YouTube called Freedom from Forced Government. I think it's Freedom from Forced Government. And there's the Charlie Chaplin speech from The Great Dictator, and it's got this piece of music behind it that's really sort of soft, and it really flows with it, and as the speech builds up, I find myself every now and then I do get emotional a little bit when listening to this sort of thing. And there's one particular part in particular. There's the documentary Owned and Operated, and I always find myself welling up a bit when it gets to the bit where there's the backing music is Time by Hans Zimmer, and the audio is I can't remember his name. He was called Storm Clouds Gathering, and it's
right,
the message. Yeah. The message he's giving to like law enforcement, military, all that sort of stuff. And when it comes up to that last bit where he says, "I think it's about time you took that oath seriously," then it cuts to that sergeant at Wall Street, like just shouting at these cops, saying, "Why are you hurting these people?" And it really like brings up that emotional crescendo, you know, and I think, you know, for individuals like yourself and everyone else who makes these kinds of videos where we combine different forms of media to have that emotional effect, I think it's brilliant for conveying this message. No.
Definitely. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Charlie Chaplin speech. I don't think I've seen the particular video you're talking about, but I have seen a few other renditions of it, and I actually had one of my own that I never ended up using in a video because I cut it together with a song. I don't know if you know Sigur Rós. They're this Icelandic band that just make the very like it depends on the song. Sometimes it's very quiet and very slow, but this is a slower song, but it just builds and builds and builds. And as the speech is building and building and building, and then right at the very end of the speech where he stops yelling, there's the part of the song where it just like hits with these like booming beats, and it just like I just have sat and watched my own little clip of that so many times, but I've never found a place to use it yet. I put that together so long ago. I've almost forgotten about it now. I should use it for something, but
something like it. From the sounds of it, it sounds like it's going to be good for something. So don't get rid of that.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'd say the other video that I actually do link quite a lot to other people is your video "Violence: The Delusion of Justice."
Okay, yeah. Cool.
That I feel is another very good compilation piece where I've been, you know, because I get into these discussions with people sometimes, and especially with this whole thing. I don't know whether you've heard about. There's a huge scandal in this country with the television presenter Jimmy Savile, and I think it's like nearly been a year since he died. But there's this whole scandal of him coming out as a child molester, and there's this whole thing where like there's been some collusion with the BBC, and everyone's like been getting up in arms and really emotional that, oh yeah, and I get in these conversations with these people who genuinely think that anyone who is even accused of child molestation should be tortured and mutilated and murdered. And I try to explain to them the very essence of why they become that way to begin with. And I do invariably link them that video of yours where I basically say to them, where it basically explains that these people don't necessarily choose to be a serial killer or a child molester or anything like that. They learn to be that. So we shouldn't be, exerting more or less the same sort of violence against them. We should be treating them with compassion, and for some people that gets them even more riled up.
Yeah, it flies in the face of people's ideas of retribution and justice, that they feel like people need to be punished, like that punishment is going to fix the problem, or if not fix the problem, it is going to in some way make it right. It's going to make up for the bad that was done by doing some bad back to the person who did it. And it's just, it's silly. It's a cycle of violence. And yeah, definitely. I feel like that video is one of my favorite ones that I did. Like subject matter wise, I watch it now and I cringe at some parts of it. My voiceover, I think it sounds so dry and monotone, but that's just me criticizing myself. But I think that's definitely one of my favorite videos as far as the message and the content behind it, because it's something that I don't think was touched on a lot in the zeitgeist movies, and I think it's a very important aspect to healing the society, is to realize that, like you said, people are that way for a reason. People commit acts of violence for a reason. It's not just, oh, they decided one day to go and rape someone, or they decided one day to go and murder people. They've, in almost every case, they've been abused as children. And I know Stefan Molyneux is a huge talking head on the anarcho-capitalism side of things, and so we disagree with him quite a lot. But if you listen to his material on child abuse and on violence, he's right on the money. He has some great videos that are just they explain this all so well. There's a series I recommend to people called The Bomb in the Brain, The Roots of Violence. I can't remember. The Bomb in the Brain. If you search for The Bomb in the Brain by Stefbot on YouTube, it's just so powerful. He goes through all the evidence, a lot of scientific basis for why child abuse is the major cause of violence in the world, and that it's not inherent in human nature in any way. It's learned. It's a learned behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would definitely also recommend Stefan Molyneux's material for anyone who's interested in the idea of reformative psychology, because he's got a lot of stuff. There's one The Latest Signs of Genes, Nature and Nurture, I think it's called, and the Freedom of Self-Knowledge, I think another one is called.
Yeah, it's a good one.
He's a very, very adept speaker at that sort of thing. But on that note, I'm afraid to say we're out of time for this particular show. So I'd like to thank you very much for coming on, Aaron. And if you just want to throw up a few websites for the audience, for them to check out your stuff.
Sure, yeah. You can find pretty much all of my stuff at theinfiniteyes.com. And I spell infinite without an E, but you can type it in the browser either way and it'll work. I bought both domain names because I figured people would get confused about that. Other than that, I would say add me on Facebook. My Facebook address is facebook.com/theinfiniteyes, and just friend me and you can see the things I post on there. I haven't been as active on Facebook as I once was, but I think I'm going to get back on there, and that's the best way to keep updated with what I'm doing. I am going to have a website eventually for my podcast, but as I said, I don't really know yet what it's going to be called, so I haven't done that. But I will be posting that up on my Facebook and on the Infinite Yes site, and I'll probably be uploading just a video pointing people towards the podcast on my Say Days Ago channel because it has so many subscribers. So if anyone is interested in finding that, they will be able to. It shouldn't be too difficult. And so that's my stuff.
Cool. Right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Aaron. As for the next show, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do. I think I might have, obviously, next month is December, so I'm going to have another review of the year. This time, obviously, of 2012. So obviously the next part of this is going to be the January show. So for then, thank you very much for listening, guys, and thank you very much for coming on, Aaron. So it's a goodbye from me, and say goodbye, Aaron.
All right, goodbye. Thanks for having me on.